Welcome back everyone to Best of the Month. This is the show where a range of creators get together to tell you what's their brand new favourite game from the past month, what have they just recently got back to the table that they've really enjoyed. It doesn't have to be a brand new game. For instance, my one's not just come out, it's relatively new though. But let's see what some of the other creators have picked as their favourite for this month.
Hi, we are
Inspired to Game. I'm Sean.
And I'm Lola. And today we are sharing with you our top plays of February this month. As soon as I played this game, I knew it was going to be my top of the month. It is ta-da-da, Artisans of Splendid Vale. So we got this game for Valentine's Day and we played it for the first time just about a week ago, and I fell in love with it, folks. I love everything about this game. It's a game with books. Oh, I love the books. Books, games are my two favorite things in the whole world, and it's got both, and they're beautiful. So this is a campaign style game that you could play with up to 4 players. It's in a fantasy world. You play crafters. You have battles with these adorable little meeples. The battle system works really, really well. There's storylines. There's a gorgeous book that you play through for the various locations. And as you explore the world, you each work through your own individual character's books. What's interesting is you do have one narrator that will speak, and this can of course change the majority of the narrative of the story. Everybody gets to follow along. At the same time, there are pictures that come up in the books with numbers that direct you to different entries for different logs. But every character will have some different entries too, because they have different skills and can perceive different things. So you explore all of that together, uncovering and exploring new things, and it's just absolutely exciting. It is cozy, it is peaceful, it is sweet, but it is also exciting. And this was my play for the month.
And for mine, I picked Viking Raiders. So as soon as we did a review of this, I really enjoyed it. It's a great game. You are all Viking tribes, your Viking clans, you're just trying to gather resources to get the most points to be the richest in clan, loot, and navy. And you gather your resources, you spend each turn buying a card from the marketplace and taking an action, which could be raiding your opponents. It could be just gaining more cards because you have the favor of the gods. And in the end, whoever gets to the agreed upon goal first wins the game. And if you're interested in this, check out our review over on our channel.
Thanks very much. We are inspired to game.
Hi, I'm Josh from the YouTube channel Joshyaks, where I talk about a wide variety of topics related mostly to unplugged hobbying. However, my 2 main areas of focus are definitely on board games and books. I'm very grateful to Ollie for inviting me to join this group. And as for my best game played in the month of February, I'm going with a game that is kind of a surprise for me, but also kind of not a surprise. The game in question is Clank Catacombs. I am a huge fan of Clank. I have the original base game plus all the expansions for it, which I collectively rate 9 out of 10. I haven't actually tried any of the Clank in Space stuff, but Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated is one of my very rare 10 out of 10 perfect games. So when Clank Catacombs came along, I was looking at it and thinking, I don't know about this, because while Clank is definitely a highly tactical game with dealing with the cards that come out and having to play the best you can from turn to turn, but there's also a strategic element in looking at the overall map and kind of planning a route to get in and out of the dungeon. And so when Clank Catacombs came along and took away that sort of strategic element, I thought, is it going to be just more random and less strategic? However, when my primary gaming friend brought the game over and we played it, I was so pleasantly surprised. It turns out that each game of Clank Catacombs presents a new puzzle in terms of how to get what you need and find your way out of the dungeon after a unique map has been built. So I ultimately rated Clank Catacombs a 9.5 out of 10, and it really blew me away. I'm definitely looking forward to more plays in the future. Cheers from Chile, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, I'm Julian and this is Libby, and we are from BoxedMeeples. You can find us right here on YouTube, but also on Instagram and Twitter. So today we are talking about the board games that we love most in February.
I am going with Endless Winter. I've been after this one for quite a long time, and then I finally got to play it at Essen when I visited there, but it was only sort of like a half game because it's sort of pre-set up to enable people just sort of sample and get you an idea of what it's like. But now it's arrived with all the extra bits and bobs. We've managed to play it a couple of times, and I'm really enjoying how you get to do some deck building and send your chief off to the most optimal place, pop out your camps and the monoliths and the creatures, and there's so many different bits and bobs that you can do something different each game or follow a slightly different path each one. And we're really looking forward to delving in a little bit more into some of the expansions with this one as well. I think the artwork looks fab and the components that we have are brilliant. So yeah, I'm loving this. I was worried that it was going to be a bit too similar to some of the other worker placement deck builders that we have, like Dune Imperium, Arnak, but I really feel like it feels a different space, a different gameplay, and now we're getting a little bit more used to it. It's not actually that much of a problem to get it to the table at all. So yeah, my game of the month is Endless Winter.
Yeah, I really enjoyed playing that. I think each expansion we've been adding has really mixed it up quite a lot. Not the easiest game to teach, but I'm looking forward to many of our game group all getting the hang of it, because I think there's a lot of depth that goes on in this game.
Yeah, and there's quite a few modules that we have to add in. So the second game that we played, we added in our little canine friends. Why wouldn't we? And it's just a tiny little thing that adds a few cards, but just change some of your choices sometimes. So even when we don't want to add in a full expansion like the Rivers and Rafts or something like that, then you can just add in a few cards to just give yourself another little option. So that's nice.
Yeah. Now, if you've been regularly watching our channel, you would see that we've just passed the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is very exciting. And to celebrate, I bought a copy of Star Wars, the Clone Wars, a pandemic game system. We're just going to call it the Clone Wars from now on, because that takes too long to say. If you've watched our top 50, you'll know that I very much enjoy the pandemic games. And you also know that we really enjoy Star Wars. So this is a really good marriage between those two things. I was wary going into it because I've played a lot of Pandemic. I've played all of Season 1, I've played all of Season 2, I've got the base game, I've got expansions. So I was slightly concerned how much I should bring to the game, and also how scaled back it would be, considering it's a more entry level style Pandemic. I'm used to, a game with all of the bits and bobs in it and lots of epidemic cards. But I'm pleased to say I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you must have if it's game of the month.
I think it feels different enough to a normal Pandemic game that it doesn't feel like the same game. It's not just Pandemic with Star Wars.
Yeah.
It feels like you're doing something very different. I really like the mission mechanisms that you do in this. So you immediately have a purpose in mind. It's not just a case of just having to remove cubes. You have to go about the board, go to certain places and do certain things. Yes, there are echoes of Pandemic in this. The way you set up the board is very similar. Drawing the cards and then placing the droids at the end of each round is obviously lifted directly from Pandemic.
Yeah, and when we were playing, certainly you sort of you're getting on doing stuff and tinkering away with your missions, then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, here comes Pandemic, because we've got an issue with these droids starting to really spread around the board, and we're actually going to have to sort of switch tack and manage that situation. And that all of a sudden it was like, here's Pandemic.
That's where it it's really scalable. If you put it in with 3 missions, it's a great way of introducing people to, but obviously the more missions in there, the heavier this gets, and the more you have to start thinking about, as Libby was saying, the droid management and keeping, stopping that threat marker from sneaking down the track, and also still trying to do your missions.
Your girls have just gotten into Star Wars, so and they enjoy other games like My Little Scythe and things like that. So I do think that this is going to be a great game that we can sort of adjust the ability, and they'll be quite excited to play because they're really engaging in the theme at the minute. So.
And because it's co-op, it's not a case of someone losing. Everyone wins or everyone loses, which I think is great for kind of family play, because then you feel a kind of real sense of camaraderie as you're doing it. Often with Pandemic style games, you're needing that one card on the deck, and I think this really does sidestep that, because at any point you can just spend all 4 turns just drawing cards till you get what you need. So I find it doesn't kind of hit that roadblock of, we can't possibly finish this now, it's impossible because the card we need isn't coming up.
The other thing that I thought was great with this one, which I sometimes find with the other normal pandemic ones is you end up, even though it's a co-op, kind of almost having alpha players because there's someone who can achieve something with less cards or someone who can do something else a bit more special, and there ends up being the mop-up players that just sort of tot around dealing with cubes, and then players that actually get to do the fun stuff. And as we've played it at the moment, I thought that the powers were relatively balanced and we didn't have that issue. So it'd be interesting to see if that carries on going forward, and I still think that later down the line. But at the moment, I felt like, oh, this was actually much better, and in terms of sort of equally feel like you're contributing to the party, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think the player skills do vary a bit. You have different, obviously, enemies you have to deal with, and they do play very differently. So that's good as well. So all in all, yeah, I think I'm unlikely to go back to kind of base pandemic now, because I enjoy the theme more in this. Obviously, pandemic is a bit of a sore spot for many people. So being able to just say, should we play a Star Wars game is immediately more appealing for most people. So yeah, I really, really was impressed with this. I knew I'd like it. I didn't think I'd like it this much to the point, but I just can't see myself, long seasons aside, I just can't see myself playing Pandemic when I can be playing this. So yeah, a real winner for me.
Yeah, great month of gaming.
Hey buddies, welcome to Amass Games. My name is Simon. Today we're talking about best of the month for February 2023. Now this particular month, this is my most played game of the month. A bit of a beast, but it doesn't take as long as most people anticipate. My first game back in the day was many hours, but I was playing with multiple players. I've since taught it as a 5 times at least in 1 week alone, so I've definitely got my fair share of play out of it. I've had a spare table to have it set up on. In fact, it was a standing desk, so we could stand and play, we could sit down if we wanted to, large enough that we can keep apart from each other as well. It was actually on a rolling table, so we can move it around. It's where I basically have what I call a war room, because I play lots of war games in particular in that room as well, lots of them on the channel. And yeah, this particular game is very much, pretty much Middle-earth in a box. I've played many Lord of the Rings games, and it's something that's just in terms of the theme itself, I'm very inspired by. In the theme in this particular game as well, I find it strong. I have played War of the Ring, the card game, and I do prefer this one over that. They both have some chance in it, but I do feel that in terms of how you play it, at least as a 2, it's something I do prefer. Aside from that, I have played an expansion mixed in with this as well. That's the first expansion, Lords of Middle-earth, and I'll be talking to you a bit more about that one and possibly even the second one at some point, Warriors. And this is a game that does take up a lot of space. We're talking about some huge quad boards and using 2 of them. Huge miniatures, 205. Somebody was due to paint them, didn't realise how many they were and kind of gave up. You do have some dice in it. You can mitigate the dice represent actions though. So a simpler explanation would be, what can I do on my turn? Well, all you can do is what the dice are rolled. You do have 3, I guess, mulligans, whereby you can spend an elven ring and give it to the opponent if you happen to be playing as the free peoples to try and mitigate that, and then they can have a go and then it goes away. The opponent in this case would then be called the Shadow, representing Sauron. Sauron's forces will also be the Isengard and the Easterlings and the Southerlings, whereas you as the Free Peoples represent 5 distinct classes or nations called the Elves, the Dwarves, you've got the North folk or the Northmen, you've also got Gondor and Rohan. Now I've played the over 60-hour playlist on Spotify twice, from Spotify going through the entire War of the Ring playlist as well. Obviously you can tell I've been very much immersed in this game. It has racked up pretty much the amount of plays in terms of time of all the other games put together. So, and in addition to amount of plays as well, it's an asymmetric game whereby you have 2 different win conditions for both teams. One of them involves trying to get 4 victory points, but basically as the Free Peoples, you've quelled Sauron and his forces enough to win the game. The other way is to destroy the One Ring, with the ring bearers doing so, casting it into the Crack of Doom. The alternative thing is for the Shadow player to win by getting 10 victory points, and that is through military as well, and you do that by conquering various locations and strongholds and settlements, and that basically represents you crushing their forces. The other way is corruption. You can get the corruption of those ring bearers up to 12, which means they're so corrupted they basically have no idea what they're doing, and they definitely won't be chucking away that ring, just like as we experienced before with the Isildur as well, before in the Second Age. So that is my review of War of the Ring. That is just very much a quick summary from a best of the month perspective. Hope you find it of interest. Of course, do let me know in the comments. I look forward to speaking to you about that very soon. Looking forward to what obviously March can bring. Obviously we talked about the prior month over here. I have got a different orientation going on, just to give you a bit more of a different flavour as well. So again, hope you found it of interest. Please, of course, do share. I'll speak to you very soon. And for now, all I can say is, here we are. There's the War of the Ring box. It is pretty big. And now, back to the table.
So this month, And maybe not too much of a surprise if you've seen my board game breakfast segment on it, or me talking about it in general. It is L.l.a.m.a, the L.l.a.m.a card game. There's also a dice version as well, but I've not played that. Basically, L.l.a.m.a is a super quick card game, and it got nominated for a number of awards, including the Spiel des Jahres award in 2019. So it's not a new game, it's been out for nearly 4 years at this point. So what is the game all about? You have a hand of cards, and on your turn you either play a card that matches the one in the middle, so if it's a 4 in the middle you can play a 4, or you can play one above, so a 5. Now, that doesn't sound very interesting, and that part's not too interesting in terms of just playing cards. It's when you then start to not be able to play cards. You can draw from the deck, and that maybe gives you the option when it comes back round to you. Maybe you could go, maybe the number's changed by then. You can also choose to drop out and effectively go, I'm not probably going to be able to play many more of my cards here, and I'm going to take these as points. Points are bad in this game. You don't want them. And there's a twist on those as well, because they come in 2 tokens. You can get 1s, which are white, and blacks, which are 10. We'll touch on that in a minute. So, at some point, you maybe drop out. Everyone is still going, trying to get rid of their hand. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, llama. Then it wraps round, so llama can be played on a llama or a 1 on top. So you keep going through this loop until everyone has basically dropped out. At that point, the last person can't draw from the deck anymore, but can try and play as many cards from their hand. At that point, everyone is then going to count up how many points they've got. The twist, it doesn't matter how many cards of a number you've got, you're only going to score that once. So if you've got 3 3s and 2 2s, well, you're only scoring 5 points in total. 1 of the 3s, 1 of the 2s score, and that's your grand total. 5 points in a round isn't too bad, considering if you've still got a llama in your hand, or llamas in your hand, that's worth 10 points, because it jumped for that scoring from the 7 to be 10 points. As sort of an extra opportunity or reason for you to push your luck. Now, the crux of this game is push your luck. I normally don't like it, which maybe makes it more of a surprise that I really enjoyed this. Because there's also, if you get all of your cards played, the round instantly ends and you put back a token. It doesn't matter if it's a 1, doesn't matter if it's a 10 point scoring token, you put one of your tokens back into the bank. And that can mean you can be right next to the 40-point limit, which ends the game, and then whoever's got the lowest points wins. You can be right on the edge and actually come back and win. So you're never fully out, but it just encourages you to play a bit riskier, draw cards from the deck when you'd normally drop out, because if you drop out now, you've lost. So, well, I'll push my luck and draw and see what happens. It's just fun, quick, and I can see why it got nominated for so many different awards. It plays better at higher player counts, but yeah, Llama is my best of the month, and the lid fell off the top there. Anyway, let's see what some of the other creators have to say.
Hey everybody, this is Chris and Angie from the Chasing Meeples podcast. We want to thank Ali for letting us participate this month, and the game that we want to talk about is
Wingspan Asia. We've had a busy month, but the one game that we've been able to get to the table is this 2-player game. Now, it does have boards for 6 and 7 player, but we always play things 99% of the time. We're playing things 2-player. So that's why I had to make sure that that was on my wish list.
this game really takes Wingspan to another level when it comes to a 2-player game. I think it just makes it a much better game. Why don't we take a look at the game and we'll show you what makes it so awesome.
When you play a bird, you're going to take one of these tokens and place it somewhere here on the duet board. Now, where are you going to place it, you ask? Well, let's look at mine here because I'm white. So I need to put it somewhere in the forested region, which is up here. And I need to match up one of these icons to the board. So I could put it maybe over here where this little worm is, because then I would get a benefit of getting an extra food, which is always a good idea. Another place I could put it over here to this nest, because it's the nest on the card. Now, if I do that, I will be adding to my largest group. So that's also a great idea. But one of the things we want to look at are also the end round goals. This one here is the most in any one horizontal row. Well, right now, either way, I'd only have one. But this one here is the edge of the map. So here I would be getting points for the edge of the map. So I might get that bonus here. I might be able to get this one is for the most of our little tokens there on our nest spaces. So maybe I would decide to go here instead of over there, even though that gives me that immediate bonus. So we've got a lot of things to think about on this duet board, and that's what makes this game so special. So this is Wingspan Asia, and the duet board really adds a lot to the game. For us, we're always playing things at 2-player, and while the base Wingspan I thought was a good game, this really makes it a great game.
It does. It solidifies it as a 2-player game that we're just going to keep
I like that word. Solidify.
Oh, solidify. That's why I used it.
Put that in the memory bank.
Yeah, well, okay. So if you enjoy listening to awkward stuff like that, which you just had a chance to see, check us out at chasingmeeples.buzzsprout.com. That is our podcast home. We're also on all the major podcast providers. Yep. You can check us out there.
Apple, Spotify, and you also put them all on YouTube as well.
Hi, it's Barb, MeeplePhD, and my favorite play of February 2023 is The Light in the Mist. This is a puzzle game where you are, looking at different cards in a deck and trying to figure out a mystery. So in this one, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the background story is that your friend has disappeared into the mist, and you are trying to figure out what happened to them using only the backpack and the tarot deck that they have left behind. So if you're not familiar with the tarot deck, it has 2 sets of cards. It's got major arcana cards, which there are 22 of them, and then the rest of the cards are broken up into 4 different suits. And to play this game, what you'll do is you'll pick one of the major arcana cards, whichever one's speaking to you that day, and pull the associated minor arcana cards. You'll know which cards to pull. There's a list in the back of the book to help you, and there's also a symbol on here that you can look through the deck and make sure that you've got the right cards once you've pulled them out. Then you're going to go read a little snippet in a book for that major arcana card. This will give you a little bit of a hint of what to do with the cards that are in front of you. And then that's it. You're going to look at the cards in front of you, try and figure out what it's trying to tell you to do, and in the end you'll come up with a word or a couple of words that will then point you somewhere else in the storybook so that you get a little more background on your friend and what might have happened to her. So I've been finding this to be a perfect kind of end of the workday game. I'm done with work, I come downstairs, I'm not quite ready to get into my evening, so I'll pull this off the shelf, I'll grab one of the major arcana cards, sit and solve the puzzle. It takes me about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm ready for the rest of my evening. It's just a nice, relaxing, fun game. I do have some background playing the Unlock games, so I know some of the tips and tricks of things that you're going to be looking for on these cards, but I also think this could be a really good introductory game if you haven't been playing a lot of puzzle games. They have a few cards that they suggest you can start with, and those are slightly easier puzzles that kind of get you in that mindset of what you need to think about for a game like this. So if you like puzzle games, if you've been looking for something like this, something that plays fairly quickly that you can just do in a little bit of downtime, this has been a really great one for me. It might be something you enjoy. It's also a very gorgeous tarot deck, so I may be hanging on to this afterwards as a tarot deck that I can use.
Otherwise, I hope you have a great month gaming. You can follow me at on Instagram and Twitter as @MeeplePhD. I have a YouTube channel, also MeeplePhD, and I have a blog at MeeplePhD.com. Have a great month.
And well, that about wraps us up this month. Let us know in the comments section below, out of all the games mentioned, which is your favourite, and which would you have picked for your best of the month. Maybe we didn't mention it. Still, let us know in the comments section below. And in the description box, make sure to check that out because it will have links to all of the creators on today's show, so you can go and check them out, spread the love, view their stuff, comment on their their videos, subscribe to them because they all put out awesome content. Anyway, until next time, have a great month gaming.